Mr. Swecker, how long were you at the FBI?
24 years.
24 years. Distinguished career?
I'd like to think so.
I think so too. Assistant Director of the Criminal Division. That's a pretty darn important position you held. In that time at the FBI, did you ever deal with confidential human sources?
Yes.
Regular basis?
Yes.
What can you tell me? Well, let's frame it this way. 26 of them were there on January 6, 2021. And we know at least 17 of them did something they weren't authorized to do. Is that typical?
I wouldn't say it's atypical. I mean, informants are generally in the criminal mix, so they often find themselves in places where their crime's taking place, yeah.
So it was okay for them to do something they weren't authorized to do on January 6th?
No. There's a process for the FBI to authorize ordinary criminal activity, and it has to be in, they're very structured about how they handle informants. If an SAC, a special agent in charge, authorizes ordinary criminal activity, it's going to be in the file.
Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. If you care about freedom, accountability, and the truth, you are in the right place. Today I want to talk about something absolutely shocking that came out of Congress. And frankly, it's something every American needs to wake up and pay attention to. We just heard from a 24-year FBI veteran, Assistant Director of the Criminal Division, no less. And what he admitted under oath should make your blood boil. Congressman Jim Jordan grilled him, and finally, we're seeing the tip of the iceberg of government overreach, corruption, and double standards. Let's break down what was said, what it means for our country, and why we the people need to stand up before it's too late.
And have you read the Inspector General's report on these 26 confidential human sources?
Not the entire report.
But according to the Inspector General, they were not authorized to do so. They were not authorized to enter the restricted space, certainly not authorized to go in the Capitol.
Right.
And we know 17 entered restricted space, 4 went in the Capitol. Yeah. How does it normally work? Do you think these guys were I'm just asking as an expert, 24 years, Assistant Director of the Criminal Division, you think these guys were paid for what they were involved with or what they did or what they witnessed, how they informed, whatever they did on the 6th? Do you think they were paid by the taxpayers?
By the time they're fully vetted informants, they generally are paid.
So certainly
to be where they are.
So certainly the two, or is it fair to say the two who were asked to be there by the FBI that particular day were probably on the payroll?
I would say yes.
Okay,
I think
so
that's
they
a
were
good
being paid
guess.
by the taxpayer, most likely being paid by the to be fair, most likely being paid by the taxpayer, and they went. 2 of these 4 went into the Capitol who were being paid or who were asked to be there. So they're asked to be by the FBI, likely being paid, and they did something they weren't allowed to do.
Right.
And why was it that every time Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, came in front of the committee over the last several years, and we'd have some Republican members would ask him about any confidential, why was he so reluctant to just say, yes, they were there?
I think it was an embarrassing thing for the Bureau, for the public to know that they had that many informants on the premises.
No procedure, nothing prohibiting from him telling us. We're not asking for their names. We're not asking to identify them. Certainly, we understand that's part of your investigative techniques and tactics. But there was nothing prohibiting Christopher Wray from telling us, yeah, there were confidential human sources there that day.
There was nothing prohibiting that I know of.
But he went out of his way to make sure we couldn't get that information. And then we didn't get that information, frankly, until after the election, 4 years later. They didn't need to wait 4 years to tell us what they knew on January 7th.
Right.
Well, actually, they knew on January 6th because they asked some of these people to be there.
It's pretty extraordinary because my mind goes to prevention. If they had that many informants out there, what were they doing and why weren't they reporting on what was going on ahead of time, and why didn't the FBI take steps to prevent what happened?
Because if these guys were helping actually doing what they're supposed to do, we might have prevented some of the things that took place that day is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Fahey, is it appropriate for with the special counsel, Mr. J. Bratt, to say to a defendant's counsel to say that we didn't know you were a Trump guy, and we thought you would do the right thing, and we understand you're interested in this judge position? Is that appropriate behavior from someone in the special counsel saying to a defendant's counsel?
That would be highly inappropriate.
That is as bad as it gets, isn't it?
That would seem, I don't recall anything even remotely comparable or even hearing of anything.
But Stanley Woodward, who this happened to.
Right, and I know it's shocking to me when I heard it, and it was only until I heard it multiple times that it was like.
One of the many things that were shocking about this special counsel, the idea that in the special counsel case in Florida, they mixed up the stuff that they got, they screwed it up and had to file with the court. Oh, the classified documents that we said Mr. Trump, that President Trump mishandled, we actually mishandled. They had to file that with the court, didn't they?
Yeah, and it's sort of the irony of it all, of holding one standard to President Trump and a lower standard, not only for them, but also
one last
for
question
other
for the three of you. Why all the pre-dawn raids? What they did to Mr. Houck, what they did to Brian Malinowski. I mean, let's assume I'm not sure Brian Malinowski did anything wrong, but let's assume he did. Had 6 firearms, sold 6 firearms he wasn't supposed to sell. Why in the world would you knock on his door, have 10 cars pull up, coordinate with local police, put the tape on the doorbell cam, and do what they did, which resulted in his loss of life? Why would you do that? We'll start with Mr. Breen, since you haven't answered anything yet.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Look, the outrageous thing, too, so they overdo it. And I got to tell you, I asked for body cam footage from the feds. They're not wearing the body cams. They're not on. The only people I could get was from the Pennsylvania State Police. They gave me a full video.
Yeah, you're talking Mr. Houck. You're talking about Mark.
For Mark,
in case
for
you
Mark
had.
Houck.
Understand.
So
Understand.
you can't even figure out what are these folks doing. You know, they tape the Ring doorbell.
Well, they did the
something
same
stinks.
thing. The point is the consistency, and they did the same thing with Mr. Malinowski. Mr. Houck was acquitted by the jury, found not guilty by the jury. Mr. Malinowski wound up dead because he thought he was being robbed, and he defended his home and then was shot in the head and died a few hours later. It's terrible what happened. And you know the interesting thing about the Malinowski case? They were surveilling him for weeks. They were all set to go do this raid pre-dawn still the week before, and they found out he wasn't there. They were going to get the firearms. He doesn't need to be there. Why in the world would you do that and jeopardize life? And, of course, the worst thing happens. Mr. Swecker, would you? That's not how it's supposed to operate, is it?
No. You know, most of the time, you do a couple hours of surveillance, you get the routines down, you catch them walking out to the car when they're unaware.
You know,
maximum drama is the only thing that you could surmise.
The only explanation could be that because they followed him, and they could have went to the airport where he worked, where everyone knew. It was so ridiculous. Mr. Chairman, I thank you for this hearing, and thank you, and I yield back.
So, first off, did you know that 26 confidential FBI informants were at the Capitol on January 6th? That's right. Not only that, 17 of them did things they weren't even authorized to do. 4 of them actually went inside the Capitol. 2 of those were specifically told by the FBI to be there. And yes, they were on the taxpayer's dime. Let that sink in. The FBI had people in the crowd and some inside the building on the day the left and the media have called the worst attack on democracy since the Civil War. But here's the kicker. The FBI Director Christopher Wray refused to answer questions about it for years. There's no law preventing him from telling Congress, but he's still stonewalled. Why? Because, as the former assistant director said, it was embarrassing for the Bureau. I'm sorry, embarrassing? We're exposing. Because this isn't just about embarrassment. This looks like a cover-up, plain and simple. And if those informants were doing their job, why weren't they reporting on what was happening? Why didn't the FBI prevent the chaos? Either they were asleep at the wheel, or they wanted this to happen for political gain. There's no other explanation. Now, let's talk about the special counsel. Jim Jordan brought up something outrageous. Apparently, someone from the special counsel's office said to a defendant's lawyer, "We didn't know you were a Trump guy. We thought you'd do the right thing. And we know you're interested in this judge position." Let me tell you, that is corruption. That is the DOJ using its power to intimidate and coerce people based on their politics. This isn't America. This is banana republic stuff. If you're a conservative, or God forbid, someone who supports President Trump, you're not just a second-class citizen. You're a target. And then we find out the special counsel, Jack Smith's team, mishandled classified documents in the very case they're trying to take down Trump for mishandling classified documents. The hypocrisy is off the charts, folks. One standard for them, another for us. Maybe the most chilling part of the hearing was about the pre-dawn raids. You've seen the videos, 10, 15 cars, heavily armed agents, tape over the doorbell camera, the works. Mark Houck, a pro-life activist, raided in front of his family, acquitted by the jury. Brian Malinowski, surveilled for weeks, could have been picked up peacefully at work. Instead, a SWAT-style raid. And he ended up dead because he thought he was being robbed. This is not law enforcement. This is intimidation. This is the FBI trying to make an example out of everyday Americans who disagree with the regime. The former FBI director himself said, "This is not how things are supposed to be done. You do some surveillance, you catch the guy at a quiet moment, you don't send in a commando team at 5 a.m. This was all about maximum drama. Why? To send a message. If you step out of line, we will come for you. Folks, I want to make this crystal clear. This is not just about Trump. This is about the weaponization of government against all of us. If they can send informants into a peaceful protest, encourage or allow bad behavior, refuse to answer to Congress, and then raid your house at dawn for political reasons, what's stopping them from coming after you? Our founding fathers warned us about this. That's why we have a Constitution. That's why we have the Bill of Rights. But right now, those rights are under attack from the very agencies that are supposed to protect them. We need answers. We need accountability. And frankly, we need more patriots in Congress like Jim Jordan who aren't afraid to ask the tough questions and stand up for the truth. So what can we do? First, share this video. Get the word out. Don't let the media sweep this under the rug. Second, call your representatives. Demand hearings, demand oversight, and demand that these agencies be held accountable. Third, support organizations and candidates who actually believe in the Constitution, the rule of law, and equal justice. And finally, remember, they want us scared, silent, and divided. Don't give them what they want. Speak up, stay informed, and stand with your fellow Americans. If you value freedom and the truth, hit that like button, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Tell me what you think. Are you as outraged as I am? Are you ready to stand up for America? God bless you. God bless our patriots in Congress, and God bless the United States of America.